Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Different Strings, a guitar adjacent podcast, music that matters. And
so many colons.
So many colons. That's actually a punctuation no. You never put two colons in one sentence.
Also, incidentally, so many colons, name of my sex tape.
There you go. Oh.
Here's 3 more colons coming right at you.
As you may notice, we've got a third face / voice with us, and that's because Marshall is back from the episode in which he participated in our lengthy discussion about gatekeeping and modern guitar technology, recording technology. And we got the idea that when we have a guest, we would invite them to provide the album for Music That Matters. In my idea, and that was, it might be something that I've never listened to. And sure enough, Marshall threw down an album that I had literally never listened to until today. And so he's going to talk to us about that album, what it is, who put it out, and why it is so important that on his hopefully first of repeat appearances down the road, it was the album he chose for this. Take it away, Marshall, the orchestra leader.
All right, so we're going to be talking about Slipknot's third studio album, Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, which was released in 2005.
Boom!
Boom!
Threw the hammer down. He threw
the hammer down.
First episode, he threw the hammer down.
And to set the precedent here, I can go on and on and on and on and on about Slipknot. They were the first real band that I ever got into. Like I was like a fan of. I've listened to every song, every album. I've watched them very closely on social media. I know a bunch of, lore. I've watched a bunch of their interviews. So I have a lot of knowledge about them, but this album in particular was very important to me, and we'll get into that.
So
yeah,
it's all you have the floor, my friend.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say, but
okay.
this is all you, my friend.
Yeah,
although
you get first shot at it.
Slipknot, the Subliminal Verses. Slipknot is to Marshall what Queen is to Wes.
All right, now I have context. I understand.
Oh, okay. So Queen was like this is the first band I like, really?
More or less. I mean, I listened to the Beatles. My dad was a big Beatles fan. I listened to a lot of folk music and groups and singers like Barbra Streisand, Barry Manilow, Neil Diamond. I grew up in that house. And, oddly enough, none of us were Jewish, but yet all of those titans of the Jewish singing community.
I'm telling you, you and I could have been brothers with that music list, because that was my house, plus Anne Murray.
Yeah. And when I discovered Queen, it was like music suddenly made sense to me. So, yeah, so I get it.
Perfect. I was very similar, where I was always listening to music. Andrew, my dad, there you are, always listening to music. My mom always listening to music. Music was always around, but I never really, it never stuck with me until I just magically, one day, I believe it was actually in your bedroom, Dad, you showed me Slipknot's music video for still one of their biggest songs, Duality.
Yep.
And I was hooked.
Yep.
Hooked immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, that's on this album, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it is. And that was my opening to metal. That was my opening to a music video. That was my opening to seeing them together. And also just music that I was like, I like this. I want to listen to this. But I was so young. I mean, how old was I when you first showed me that?
Well, I don't. You might have been. Oh no, I can. You were 5 or 6.
5 or 6, yeah.
Nice.
To the point where when I didn't have any like music, like way to listen to music other than with my parents. So I would go into your room and I would say, Dad, put on the masks because the very slim I'm wearing, and you would be like, got you. And you would play that video ad nauseum, which looking back on it, thank you for indulging me. I mean, really, because it had to be at least, once or twice a week. I was coming in your room and be like, Dad, play the thing. And you'd be like, okay. And you'd play it. And that was
nice that you let Slipknot raise your kid, man.
yeah.
I don't know if I like how you said that.
You know, and so that was it. That was when, like, wow, music is cool. I got it. And then I was later exposed to their album that came after that, which was All
Let's
Hope Is
talk about how
Gone.
I got you into the
2008.
song Dead Memories, where Corey's digging his own grave when you were 6. Why
Yeah.
don't we talk a little bit about that
Well,
and how that
he
might have
had
scarred you? Go ahead, Wes.
he
You have
had
anything you want to say about
several
that?
failings as a parent, but that was not one of them.
Go ahead, Wes. You have anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
No,
I'm gonna let him. I'm gonna keep letting him talk.
And of all your miserable failings as a parent, which continue to this day, that was not one of them. And we
He's absolutely your kid.
But that was my introduction to really, I'll say, music as a whole, because before, when I listened to music, I wasn't really listening. I was just hearing the environment around me.
Yeah. And
I
it's an
had never
important
wanted
distinction.
for it. I had never wanted for music before. I never said, put this on. I never was like, I like this song that's on. I just always heard it. It became part of the background noise of my life. But when I heard that, it was suddenly music was a thing. It was a tangible thing that I was like, this is a focus for me now. It's not in the background. They're screaming at me, their guitars, they look mad, they're in my face, they're making themselves known.
Yeah. Now, when you started playing guitar, because you didn't start playing guitar at 6 years old,
No.
Was Slipknot in general, and this album specifically, something that kind of inspired you to start playing guitar?
It was one of the things that started my interest in being like, I'm going to do that.
Well, do you remember what you wanted to play after you heard the Slipknot and after you saw that video? What instrument did you want to play? Do you remember?
I believe I wanted to play drums.
That is correct.
Yeah, I
Not in
wanted
an apartment, you didn't.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we had to break his little
now
heart.
I program them. So
yeah,
suck it.
Yeah, we had to break his little heart with the drum thing, and that was hard because your kid comes to you and he says, "Oh, Dad, I really want to play drums," and you're like, "Man, I wish I could just buy him a drum kit right now." And we had to explain why we couldn't, and he was good about it. He honestly understood. But what I didn't do, and I kind of want Marshall to tell the story, but because it sounds self-serving when I do it, but I didn't push guitar on him. I didn't push guitar on him like, well, you can't play drums here, bud, but you can play guitar. He came to that on his own, and he can tell you that story. But I want him to go back to Slipknot and what that meant to him, because I do know that it started a thing.
When I decided to play guitar, what did it for me was you showed me Periphery's first album. You put on still one of their biggest songs, Icarus Lives. It was the instrumental version. Which I don't even think is on Apple Music anymore, but it used to be. And I was like, damn, Dad, can you teach me how to play guitar, is what I said. And I think I was 12, maybe?
Yeah.
It was around that age.
When the skies opened up and the angels sang. Yep, that's
Actually, I think I might have been 14. It was like 13 or 14.
Still both really great ages to start playing guitar.
Yeah.
Right. Old enough to be able to develop the discipline, but young enough to still really be excited about it.
Yeah. That was the song that did it for me. But as soon as I got my first guitar, which, man, my first guitar, it was a black Ibanez Geo short scale.
Okay.
And it was, I think, $180.
It wasn't expensive. And you were definitely young, and we had to get you a smaller scale.
Yeah. And the first thing I did was put it in drop B because I'm stupid and I didn't know how guitars work, because I wanted to play Slipknot. who plays in two tunings, drop B and drop A.
Okay.
And went to town on it. Sounded like crap, but I played the hell out of those floppy strings, let me tell you.
Good.
And I was terrible. It sounded terrible, but I was having so much fun. I didn't care. So they were really the first music that I tried to learn on my own. And then my dad would come in and say, "Hey, I would want to have like a guitar lesson." I'd be like, "Shit!" I'd tune it back up to standard real quick, so he didn't know the Satan worshiping I was doing. I was like, "Wow, wow, wow, wow." So I would tune it back up to standard and be like, "No, just the Beatles. That's what I was playing. Yep,
Yeah.
the Beatles."
Just
So
in here Beatlesing away, Pops.
Yep. So he was not privy to the fact that I was probably destroying the intonation and the neck on this guitar by down tuning it a bunch. I was hiding it like crazy.
Didn't matter. You had it for like 5 minutes because you almost immediately outgrew it.
Yeah.
But back to Slipknot. So
right.
Yeah.
Music that matters.
Oh, yeah.
Slipknot. Remember that?
Yeah.
So I want to know, because we never really had this discussion. Sounds like Slipknot started a thing for you as it pertains to music, but I want to know, like, when you listen to this record, first as a non-musician, but now as a musician, like, how does it speak to you? What do you hear when you hear this record? And what memories does it evoke, and what emotions does it evoke?
Oh
and
man,
just
it's so much, honestly. The first thing that comes to mind when I think Slipknot Volume 3 of Subliminal Verses is that memory of listening to it with you and being like, "You like this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like this," and us listening to it. That's the first thing. But after that, when after that phase of only being able to listen to like the one song that we would play, being
yeah,
able to
remember
listen to the
when we
full album.
discovered we can listen to that song in the car too, and you were like,
Nice.
Yeah. Once we were like, "Oh, yeah, the whole album's on here," and we listened to it. It is so dense with so many colors and feelings and emotions, and I immediately felt from other people the stigma of it's metal music, it's satanic, it's all about anger and hatred and murder and drugs, but if you listen, I mean the title track, not the title track, the first track called Prelude 3.0, no guitars as far as I can tell, no harsh vocals, like it's slow, it's melancholic,
it's a little
it's
industrial.
it's a little
Yeah.
industrial.
It was not at all
That whole album
what
is
I
very
was
industrial.
expecting from
No.
Slipknot.
Nope.
I only know Slipknot from a couple of videos and their kind of their public image. And I actually went back and looked at my browser screen to make sure I was actually had not clicked on the wrong video. I was that surprised by the sound. And I was like, okay, maybe my preconceptions need to take a back seat a little bit.
Yeah. So, and Vermilion Part 2, it's acoustic.
Yeah.
It's all acoustic. No screams. It's so emotional. So when I listen to Slipknot Volume 3, there's so many colors, and you can put on, so it's good for so many different moods and days that you're having, because I mean, make no mistake, there's really heavy stuff on here, really intense music, but the topic, I think, is what matters with these lyrics, and they're very well, I think subliminal verses is actually a really good term for it. There's these underlying messages that you don't pick up because you're being this barrage of distortion coming at you, and you're just like, "Oh no, it's scary Satan music." But if you actually look at the lyrics, and you're like, "Wow, this is really like deep stuff that he's talking about." And to my knowledge, around this time, Corey had to relearn how to do his vocals because the first album came out in 98 or 99, I believe, self-titled. The second one, Iowa, came out, I think, 2002. He was exclusively screaming, legitimately screaming, and then applying a vocal fry distortion to it, and it destroyed his voice.
Yeah.
So for this, he got sober. and relearned how to scream properly without destroying his voice. So this album to me is all about renewal and making something new from the ashes of what they had left behind in 2002. They had become this massive thing in for only having 2 albums. They were playing around the world. They were one of the biggest bands in the world at the time, and the stardom that they had was destroying them. It's 9 angry people, all
So
on
many
drugs,
people in the
all
band.
drinking, all staying up all night and doing terrible things, destroying their bodies and their minds. And then you have this album where they got sober, and it's all about
and got Rick
healing.
Rubin, by the way. This is the first.
And got Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin produced this, Wes, so you know who Rick
Yeah.
Rubin is.
I was listening to the album, and I got about halfway through, and I was like, something's not right.
Yeah.
something's just not right. Like, and so I thought maybe I just missed something in the song. I went back to the beginning of the song. I went back another song. I'm like, this is a Rick Rubin album.
Yep. It's all over the place.
I could tell.
It's all over the place. The amount of over compression on this album is kind of insane.
And
there's no dynamics.
If you listen to Iowa and then you listen to this, it is like night and day.
Night and day, yeah.
Night and day. And the level of polish on this record is excessive. It's crazy. But
yeah,
he also helped shape. We could talk all day about what a dickhead Rick Rubin is, but he helped shape these songs into more commercially accessible, right? It was the first time that there was a commercially accessible Slipknot record.
Slipknot album. Yeah, I mean, for all his pros and cons, the one thing that I really admire about Rick Rubin, and he does this with every band that he works with directly, like in his role as a producer, not when he's just executive producing and, you know, signing checks and stuff like that, but like in the studio, is he gets every band he works with to distill down what they're trying to do to its core necessities, and then build the song from there. And build the experience, the sonic experience from there.
And he also has he has this effect where any record that he's on, there is at least 1 or 2 radio hits, no matter what he does.
Yeah.
Because he does push bands in a more controlled area.
He was responsible for one of my favorite Slayer records and one of my favorite Chili Peppers records.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot he did Slayer.
And he was responsible for one of my favorite and only favorite Beastie Boys records. So the guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah. Well, he got his start as a hip hop producer. So when he started working with the Beastie Boys, were his first rock band, even though they were really a rap band, you know, but they were fully within his wheelhouse. And then he did that. I think he did Raining Blood.
Yeah, he did.
Or I'm sorry, the album is called Rain in Blood. Apologies. And I think that was the first metal album he did. And then I'm trying to remember, he did The Cult recorded their album, hated it, and went and re-recorded it with Rick Rubin, and it became Electric. Yeah, it became Electric, which is like
1987,
the most rock and roll album at the time in the 80s, you know, like, and that was right before Guns N' Roses hit. And Electric has like no reverb on it, you know, in some places. It's just raw and in your face. They sound like a rock band is supposed to sound. It's such an amazing album.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of Rick Rubin. Not that the songs weren't there, you know, Billy Duffy and what's his name, psycho singer guy, wrote some great songs, but Rick Rubin made them sound great. And that was the gift that he gave the world, you know, is that album. And so when I started realizing there were so many of his little touches on this album, I was like, oh, okay, now I see what they're doing.
Yep.
You know, and I really dug the there's a song, and you have to excuse me, I don't know all the names, but it's the next to last song. And it's a little bit long, and it really spoke to me. Like I stopped what I was doing and listened to the song. It was that good. It was a really, really powerful song.
It's Outlaw.
I honestly, I don't know. I just remember it was the next to last song on the album.
You're talking Subliminal Verses, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And, it was so good. And I really liked I guess they have it sounded to me at sometimes like they had a guy scratching on records.
Yes, they do.
They have a DJ.
Okay, so that was not my imagination. It sounded to me also like, in addition to the drummer, they have a dedicated percussion player.
Two.
Oh, two.
Yes.
Well, they were doing some really cool stuff in there.
The Virus of Life, I believe, was the 13th track.
Virus. Yeah. And it was when I was expecting a metal album with scream vocals, because they're the guys in the masks, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was expecting. And what I got was a really accessible metal album with a wider range of influences than I ever thought Slipknot would have.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing what you can do with 9 people, but I mean, it also creates so much tension. Yeah, but I mean, let's see, you got one vocalist, you got your drummer, you got your bass player, you have your 2 guitar players, you got 2 percussionists who both do backup vocals, you got a sampler, and a DJ. A sampler and a DJ, not both. A sampler and then a DJ.
That's a lot of overhead, Wes.
It sure is. And
that's a lot of checks to write.
Yeah. Marshall, have you ever been in a band, like a formal band?
I have been in one formal band.
Okay. How many people were in it?
3.
Okay. That's pretty good. I have always equated being in a band to having that many girlfriends, wives, husbands, whatever you want to call them, all at the same time.
Yes.
Yep.
And not in a consensual poly relationship.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it really is balancing all of those individual relationships in light of the collective relationship. I cannot imagine doing that with 9 people. 5 is the biggest band. No, that's not a lie. I played in a band with 6, but we were in high school, and it wasn't really the same. But like, for real, I played in a band with 5 people, and it's a lot. It's a lot to manage. I couldn't imagine doing it with 9 people.
And they've been doing it for more than 2 decades. And honestly, it is no wonder why they hate each other so much.
Yeah. Especially with a singer that doesn't play an instrument.
Yeah, not on any of the records. He does, I believe, play guitar for his like solo projects and stuff, but that is about it.
He's a decent acoustic guitar player, at least. I had no idea that Corey Taylor was the Slipknot singer. Like, I knew of Corey Taylor from like some acoustic videos that I saw on YouTube from time to time.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea it was the same guy until today when I looked him up.
So he and everybody wants his opinion for some reason.
Well, he gives it whether you want it or not. But Subliminal Verses for me that was my first foray into Slipknot. So I had heard of them, and I heard some songs from Iowa and from their first record, and I wasn't like immediately hooked. But then I saw Slipknot do a late night performance. They played Duality on a late night show, and I thought, that's a good song. I want to hear more of that. Looked them up, and I listened to that album a lot for a long time. And then, as my son, alluded to earlier, he saw me watching a video. I played it for him. He loved it. Next thing you know, he was listening to that. So I do equate Slipknot with like a little bit of a bond with my son, which is kind of cool. But if you take that out of the equation, which I don't, but if you do, as an album, I do think it's one of Slipknot's best works. I think they were at probably close to their peak, if not, if not at their peak, start to finish. They're all bangers. That whole album, it's
Yeah.
just a great ride.
I mean, but look at the underlying force that's going on in there. They're freshly sober.
Yep.
And they're working for Rick Rubin.
He just injects you with a new sense of purpose, right? Yeah. That's what he did for the Chili Peppers. He got most of them sober, and then they went in the studio and recorded Blood Sugar, Sex Magic, and it was huge,
fantastic album,
huge for them.
That's the only Chili Peppers album I have. I'm not a big Chili Peppers fan, and I love that album.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Dave Navarro's stint with them because I like Dave Navarro, but I can't talk about anything he does too much because I don't like child rapists. But anyway, so back to Slipknot.
I was gonna say
Slipknot Duality live on Kimmel 2004. It's on the YouTube.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it wasn't not meant to last forever, as great things are typically not meant to. They lost their bass player Paul Gray shortly after they released the next album, and Paul Gray was, for all intents and purposes, which I didn't know, one of the key songwriters and the soul of that band. Yeah, it's weird to say that about bass players because bass players are usually one-arm monkeys. But for Slipknot, Paul Gray was the preeminent songwriter. He was their primary songwriter and the soul of the band.
And one of the founding members.
Founding members.
Yeah, you say lost. Did he quit or did he die?
He
died.
That sucks.
Very young.
Died of a drug overdose.
Yeah, that was extremely unfortunate.
That sucks.
And then, not too many albums later, lost another key founding member, Joey Jordison, to an illness.
The other founding member.
He was the drummer, right?
Yeah.
He was. And he was a hell of a drummer.
He was just, I mean, Joey was to metal drums what Neil Peart is to progressive drums. I think I can safely say that Joey started some shit.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
His mix of this metal drumming, but also this groove, this offbeat snare stuff that he does, these bouncy fills that are all over the place. It's like unequivocally funky, groovy, hip hoppy. Because, Slipknot being a new metal band, all these new metal bands, hip hop inspired sort of stuff, you have a DJ in your band, I mean, of course, but the drums in particular with hip hop are a massive thing with these, like, it has to bounce, it has to groove, it has to be pocket, and he found a way to combine this death metal sort of sound that they had on Iowa with this, like, fast double bass, these blast beats that he was doing, and found a way to combine that with this groovy, like, off-kilter sort of drum style from hip-hop and made it work somehow, and it sounds amazing. And after that, everybody wanted to sound like that.
Yeah, I can see why. Well, you guys have anything else you want to add about the volume 3 from the Slipknot?
From the Slipknots. No, I think that for me, I mean, Marshall, thank you for bringing it. I think it was a great selection, great album, definitely one of the most influential metal albums of the last 20 years.
Yeah, and it was an education for me. Like I said, I kind of, never really just paid attention to them because they were just the screamy guys with masks. But I have a lot more respect for them as a band after hearing. Like, I knew they were huge. I'm not stupid. I don't particularly care for Taylor Swift's music either, but I know she's huge. I know who she is. But listening to that album was a real experience, and I really enjoyed it. So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Absolutely.
I will forgive you for mentioning Slipknot and Taylor Swift in the same sentence. I will forgive you that.
I'm surprised, Wes, that you hadn't heard them before. Seeing as you're such a massive Gojira fan, and they play shows together now,
Yeah, I'm really stingy with letting new bands into my circle, and it's got to come from I don't trust myself, basically. So I got to get a recommendation from somebody I trust, musically speaking, and frankly there's not a lot of those people. But I want to thank everybody for joining us again, especially you, Marshall, for taking time out of your life to talk to a couple of near boomers.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And I want to encourage everybody to visit us on the internet, which Andrew is going to tell you how to do that.
differentstringspodcast.com, please and thank you.
There you go. And who's up next, Andrew, for Music That Matters? Is it your turn or my turn?
I don't remember. Come on. It's like a million years ago.
All right. I'm going to throw it to you for the next episode then.
All right. I'll bring it. I'll bring the heat.
All right. Everybody take it easy, and we'll see you next time right here on Music That Matters.
Peace.
Peace.